I am not sure that I'm not the only one who ever did this. Yeah, thinking that you can buy properties and you can manage them yourself. I am so positive. I actually think that you are actually managing the properties yourself. But here is what I learned, right? And this is why I actually eventually then just hired a property manager. The reason why I actually hired a property manager is that, let's not jump into them first, but let me start off from a point when I was starting off. Because the syndrome of wanting to manage something on your own without having the professional people to do it for you is that you might be thinking like me back in the days to say, well, I wanted to learn how this is done. So obviously, like many people, I bought my first 2-bed, 1-bath, and I thought, well, if the estate agent or the property manager is going to be charging me anything from 5% around about 10% on 5,000 Rand, that's some money that I can save. So I thought, well, I can do this, right? Anyone can do this. Who knows, who doesn't know how to send a contract? Who doesn't know how to vet for tenants? I can do this, especially in areas where the tenants are, there's a high demand of tenants. So you kind of like being chased whenever the people just see, windows open and there's no curtains. People already think that there's an accommodation. Now, I want to speak to that point because I think that was, from a beginner's perspective, that was a great idea. I wanted to learn, and there is nothing wrong with learning. And I dug in on my first 2-bed, 1-bath, and I did say, I am not going to hire a property manager. I'll do it myself. So it was from a learning perspective. I gave myself a comfort feel. TJ, you are learning here. You need to learn how to properly manage your stuff. You need to learn how to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to lose money. And it was a good learning curve. I went to read everything about the rent, any documentation that was available about the rent. I went on to read about how do you actually get the best contracts around. I lived in TPN for a very long time because I wanted to understand how does TPN works. I wanted to understand how do you vet tenants and all of those things, and I lived it. Okay. However, what I was not aware of is that it is not just about having a tenant and then you put them there on your place and you forget about it. There is more. So the learning didn't stop from me understanding the regulation around renting and how to actually get the tenant in. I went on to all these platforms, Property 24, Private 20, Private Property, and all of them to understand how can I advertise. So I had a good handle on all of that. I knew exactly who is more expensive, who's not, where is more traffic. So I understood that, and that was okay. The real learning really kicked in when the tenants moved in. So yes, I had a check-in form like anyone else, right? And by the way, if you're watching this and you don't have a check-in form, the world has progressed these days. There's apps that you can also do. So there's check-in apps, right? You can Google them and you can actually take videos. You can actually do amazing stuff, take pictures and all of those things, and you can save them on an app. It doesn't have to be a form anymore. Okay, good. Back to why I actually started, wanting to be a property manager. So the first one was that I wanted to learn. But then when the tenant was in the property, whoo, Lord, this is where the real learning started, because I would get a phone call at an odd time that there's a plumbing issue. What do? Well, you need to learn how to have on a speed dial the plumbers in the area. And yes, I got that covered. Why? Because I'm a planner. Yes. So high five to TJ. I had that on a lockdown. But what about the other problems that are outside plumbing? Maybe there's an electrical problem. Maybe there is another problem. But for my 2-bed, 1-bath, that wasn't really a major problem because I had the body corporate to fall on. when there was an issue. I'd always call the body corporate, hey, the lights are not working, and then boom, they'll send someone else. If it was my problem, they send me the bill. If it is their problem, they sort it out. So it was from a learning perspective, and for a year and a half, I did that. But the problem kicked in when I had one property and 13 tenants. I'll come to that. Let's go on to why I started actually. Well, I thought I was saving. If on a property of roundabout, I'm earning 50,000 Rand in rental income, and now I can save 10% of that, that's a lot of money. So I thought it was saving. This is hiring a manager? Nah, I'm gonna save my money, right? More money for my back pocket, and my beautiful Jenna, she is happy. Really? But what's the equivalent actually of saving that money and doing the work when it comes? Some food for thought. The other thing was that I thought it was easy. I really thought it was easy. I really thought it was easy. I didn't think that property management is hard. It was hard because I didn't know what I was doing. I was not trained to do it. Remember, I was a banker, right? Remember, I was a banker. So I wasn't trained to be an estate agent. I wasn't trained to be a rental manager. It's not my forte. I was learning on the job, right? Reading, go and do. Reading, go and do. What if a client doesn't call you or doesn't send you, your tenant doesn't send you a proof of payment? Do you call them up? It doesn't say anything about that. Let me just call them anyway. So I did call them. What if the tenant doesn't pay the full rent and they say they'll pay me next month? What do I do? Oh, you can send them an acknowledgement of debt. Oh, what is an acknowledgement of debt? Oh, they actually have a template on it, and I can just put in my name in there. Oh, okay, cool. I did that, right? So I'm learning as I go. But what's the repercussion of this acknowledgement of debt? Nobody told me about that. Oh, learning on the job. Is there anything learning on the job? Not at all. Not at all. It just depends whether you want to grow faster, right? And the last thing that I learned, obviously, from just thinking that property manager is not all that I can do it on myself, is that I thought anyone can do it. Really, I did think that. I thought, what is so difficult about putting in a tenant in a property? And then when there's got a problem, they call me, I pick up the phone. I really thought it was that easy. But what I then learned out of this, 2 years of managing my own properties, and this was actually between me and Rita, we were managing these properties. The bigger we got, the more problematic it became. And I'm so happy, so happy that we got property manager, and Bevan gets, him and his team gets to solve this problem. What if you cannot afford to have Bevan, a property manager in your team who can do that? Well, we didn't start off with having a business, actually Frostpeak, that manages all of our properties. We started utilizing property managers in the area, and up to now we still do. So you can get property managers to manage your properties. The danger only comes in if your properties are scattered everywhere, because now you need to talk with that property manager, that property manager, that property managers. But if all of your properties are in the same space, it becomes easy. You can go into a one-stop shop. You can go in on the realty, like there's many of them around, Rosso, plenty, right? But here is what I learned, right, in all of this. So I thought that I could do it, or I could do it. I thought I could learn on the job. I thought I was saving money, and I thought it was easy, right? Not that anyone can do it. But my learning came in on my journey of 2 years. Property managing, self-property managing, was that, number one, it is admin intensive. The administration behind it, it is intensive, right? Obviously, you need to get all of your contracts in place. Obviously, you need to be putting up statements and all of those things, right? And if you're not an administrative-driven person, there comes the problem. Because if you don't have it, Now again, you're learning how to be an administrator in your business, and all of this needs to be done in a particular system. Which brings me to point number 2, is that you actually need to have a system. There is a system behind those madness. What you're paying for 5 to 10%, there is a system behind it. And that's what you're paying for. And I learned that the hard way. Yeah. The other thing that I also learned is that you need to know what you are doing. You can learn on the job, and that's okay. But not knowing what not to do is that, for instance, when a tenant pays you 50% of the rent, what do you do? You have to be knowing. If you don't know, you're just going to say, okay, fine. So next month you're going to pay me all of it. Yes. Come when it comes to eviction, you are on the back foot if you haven't followed the process. So there is a process, okay? Then the other thing that I also learned is that, and this was a you know, an obvious blind spot? Yeah, I had an easy, like a stupid blind spot on this one. And that blind spot was, you need to be available 24/7. Yeah, and I'm not, I'm like Sunday, I'm gone out. Don't call me, you know, it's me and Jesus, like, you know, like I'm not available. But if you are managing your properties yourself, you gotta be available 24/7, because you don't know what's going to happen. Imagine you're out there, you're having dinner with your missus. It's romantic, ne? Okay. Baby, you know, your eyes, they are so nice and beautiful. A plumbing issue, and you are just about to put in that ramp stick in your mouth. What happens? You stop, you attend to it, isn't it? And it didn't go well with me. I think the biggest one was on one Sunday morning, we had a plumbing issue on one of the properties, and we had 13 tenants on that property. So instead of getting one phone call from one person to indicate to me that we've got a problem on the property, I got 13 phone calls. And I was like, nah, this is no cool. But guess what? I had a property caretaker on that property, and the caretaker, for some reason, he wasn't there for that day. So all the phone calls came through to me. And yes, I was able to sort it out remotely. Yes, I had the plumbers in the area, they went in, but I had 13 people calling me. Now imagine if you have the same problem on 2 properties and you've got 13 people and 20 people in the other building, and those processes are not in place. Woo, and you have no system. Woo. Your phone will be ringing crazy. Yes, I did say that. Ring, ring. Okay, good. But what is the other thing that I then learned out of all of this? You need to be a friendly and professional person when dealing with tenants, because obviously they are no longer just your tenants, but your customers as well. So for that reason, the level in which you actually need to be dealing with them is very different. Professionalism needs to be very high and things like that. After I learned all of these things, 5 things that I've given you. Number 1, which is that it's admin intense, and I'm like, because this is actually becoming a job. And my thing is not about being on a job. I left APSA. I didn't want to be on a job anymore. I wanted to create a system that can manage the properties, and I'm happy to do that. So admin intense, no, not me. So I ran, and that's why I ran and I looked for a property manager. Reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that as the business was growing, the more the problems and the complex they started becoming. Not only did we want to just get like someone in, a caretaker to manage the property and to have a property manager who's going to manage the property for when there is a problem. No, but there's other things. What about general maintenance, right? Scheduling general maintenance. We forget about that one, isn't it? Every 2 to 3 years, you need to go and paint, right? So how are you going to schedule it? You know what I mean? And that's the duty of a good property manager. The property is coming, we are coming into a rainy season. Well, we now need to change gear in terms of managing gardening and so on. So now we need to contract gardeners frequently, more frequent than before when it was winter. You get the drift. So they're actually doing more than just collecting rent, the good property managers out there. A system, the more I grew, I didn't have the system, so it just made sense for me to go and hire a property manager because they have the training and the system as well. And did I really want to now managing 200 tenants all over the country and all of them coming through onto my cell phone? No. As you can see, the more that you're going to be growing, the more you want to be, it's more important now to have a property manager. But you don't have to start hiring. I didn't have to start hiring a property manager when I was at 200 because the business would have been a mess already by that time. I started off on, I think it was around about the 4th, 5th property, and we've realized that there is actually more work to be done because this is a job. And we hired a property manager, and life became easy after that. My job now is to look for opportunities. That's my job. I look for opportunities. Property manager, their job is to make sure that the properties are being well managed. I've been fortunate enough that actually I can have a business partner who actually manages the properties on our side. So guess what? I kind of like save on that 10%, but there is people working in that business that still needs to get paid. But the bigger picture is you need to start working with a property manager. Oh, those were my reasons of having a property manager. If they resonate with you, go and look for a property manager. It will help you in time. You will have peace of mind. Yes. And also, you sleep better at night because someone else is doing the job for you. My name is Taurai Jack. It's been great hanging out with you. If this has been anything of exciting to you, give me some comments. What do you think about this? Should you manage on your own or should you hire the property manager? That's the question. For as long as you have listened to this, you need to answer that question. And then, if you've never subscribed, you need to subscribe right now. Okay, God bless. Cheers. I'm over and out. Bye.